Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking us on out. Much appreciated. If you guys could subscribe here, that'd be cool. If you guys also could subscribe to the Tobin and Leroy show, which you could watch weekdays 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on the WQM YouTube page, that'd mean a lot to me too. So the Miami Dolphins introduced their defensive coordinator, Anthony Weaver, who very charismatic, very captivating, won the press conference, in my opinion. You know, a guy who I just thought was great in all of his stuff. You could tell that this moment seemed to mean a lot to him to get back to this position of defensive coordinator. He's thrilled to get another shot at doing this gig after what happened in Houston, and then talked a little bit about his admiration for Romeo Crennel and John Harbaugh. And so very interested to see what this guy can do with the pieces that he has. He seems very excited about the pieces. We'll get to that in just a second. But the first impression off the bat, this guy couldn't be any less Vic Fangio if you tried. Like, he is, you know, a guy that just seemed, first of all, very engaging with the media. Vic Fangio, curmudgeon, young, old, seems like he's going to be adjusting to things to his players and not exactly set in his ways. And also already feels like there's a vibe with Mike McDaniel and admiration for Mike McDaniel that I'll be honest with you, I didn't know the ties went back to Houston. I knew about them being on the same staff together in Cleveland. I was unaware that Mike and him had crossed paths in Houston, where Weaver was playing and Mike McDaniel was doing, I guess, quality control. So these guys, roots run deep. Mike McDaniel, it's cool for Mike because Mike is going to have a couple of firsts this upcoming year for him in his third head coaching year. And I think his development as a coach, we talk so much about Tua. We talk so much about, you know, is Tua the guy, all this stuff. I think Mike McDaniel, in a lot of ways, is facing as big a year upcoming here as Tua is. You know, year 3 is a big year. He's made the playoffs the first couple of years in his career, but everybody wants to see that next step. Is he capable of being that guy with the next step? We talk about the play calling, the development that has to happen there. You know, is he going to learn from some of the mistakes that he had? But also for him, it's got to be exciting because he gets to do a couple of things. You know, he gets to fill out a coordinator spot at defense, which, you know, he really hasn't had the chance to, right? You bring in Josh Boyer. That was like a Band-Aid so you could just focus on Tua. And then let's just keep focusing on Tua, but we're basically going to hire another head coach who's just going to handle the defense. And there's not going to be that through line of communication. So he's in a way, while he has a lot of talent and the Dolphins have made some big trades, from the ground floor of things, he's had his hand tied behind his back from the coaching staff perspective. And then, of course, what's going to be his first NFL draft with a first-round pick, you would think. So there are a couple of firsts here that are going to be interesting for Mike. But as far as Anthony is concerned, you know, he talked about the relationship that he had with Mike McDaniel and why it is so strong and the belief that he's had in him. And I think this is going to go such a long way this season in having a positive vibe there.
Yeah, so I've known Mike since 2006. I mean, he was a QC in Houston when I played there. And who you guys see on a week-to-week basis is who he has always been. I had a tremendous amount of respect when I played not under him directly, but I just saw his work ethic as a veteran player at that particular point. And then when I had the opportunity to coach with him in Cleveland, I was like, oh, he's special. It took the rest of the world a little bit longer to see that than I did. Some other head coaches along the way, I tried to get them to hire Mike, wouldn't listen, and hey, to their detriment, right? But from a coaching standpoint, philosophically, we believe in the same things. We believe it. I'm going to go back. So do you guys remember Clarence Brooks? All right, Clarence Brooks, he coached here defensive line back early 2000s, something like that. He's since passed, all right, rest in peace. But Clarence used to say, this game has been and always will be about the players. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And as an ex-player, I know how finite this career is. And because of that, I take my responsibility in a leadership position as a defensive coordinator extremely, extremely important. And I don't want to waste anybody's very finite time in this league. So because of that, man, like, we want to be great in all that we do.
So I think that you can immediately tell, first of all, with the admiration for Mike, that's huge, but also, look, they're players, coaches, guys. This is the thing we're seeing around the league these days. These guys and the relationship that they have with the players, there's very few old heads who are getting the gigs anymore, you know? And the ones that do, like an Andy Reid that's still out there, seems to have a very positive relationship with his players, so much so that they can scream in his face and they're still laughing about it at a Super Bowl parade. But I think for that, it's such an interesting thing because you have a roster with some guys that do need to develop, that maybe need to be put in better places and need that communication line with the coaches. And I think probably one of the things that really hurt Mike as a guy who cares about that locker room last year is his offensive players could have input on stuff and he would listen and value that stuff. You know, we saw this on Hard Knocks, right? All the guys who would meet there and meet with the coaches. The defensive guys couldn't have that because it was all Vic Fangio's way or the highway. And I think when you have an Anthony Weaver there, now all the input there is going to be, you know, respected. It doesn't mean that you have to use everything that they say, but it's going to be something that isn't just going to be ignored. It's not going to fall on deaf ears. And I think the biggest place we could do that with is probably going to be with Jalen Ramsey and moving him around and not just sticking him in one side of the field and then just that's it, you know, which clearly Jalen Ramsey was not a fan of and did not love. You know, he was chirping about basically every candidate that you could get to get Vic Fangio the hell out of there. There clearly was not, I don't think it's animosity, but there was not this great communication where if Tyreek Hill says something, it's going to mean something. And you can tell that Mike McDaniel and Jalen Ramsey seem to have a very good relationship. Just the way that he talked about him when he was injured and the type of energy that he would bring to the team. This is a man I think that Mike McDaniel really, really wants to respect. He doesn't want to be looked upon as just the offensive coach. So you need to have a line there. You need to have some way to get to these guys. And so that's hopefully what the change is going to be. Here was Anthony Weaver on what he sees with Jalen Ramsey.
I mean, it's Jalen Ramsey. I mean, come on now. Like,
great point.
You talk about prototype corners. He is that, right? Size, length, speed, competitiveness. The thing about him is I think he's your ultimate chess piece. So to have him just sit outside and, you know, be a field corner or boundary corner or something like that, I think is a detriment to him. We got to find ways to move him around where he can be most impactful. And we're committed to doing that.
And we certainly saw that early on in Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey winning damn games himself when he made his initial return to the Dolphins, but it did feel like as the weeks went on, people were able to just be like, all right, we know where to stay away because they're not going to change anything. And so, look, you'll have a part of the field that nobody wants to throw to, but is it the best way to utilize a Jalen Ramsey? And especially, you know, if you're going to end up losing a Xavier Howard, who has always been really good with those ball skills and making turnover plays. Now, certainly has been getting long in the tooth and has been getting up there and has been getting picked on more and more and more. But you're going to have to get some versatility from that spot. So I think everybody's excited to see what he can do there. I think the big thing that you got to worry about with Anthony is probably his pass rush and how healthy guys like Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, who he did praise a lot in this press conference, but what impact are they going to have this year? It's the big wild card, right? We don't quite know how JP is going to come back from this injury. You know that he's going to bust his ass to do it, but we're not going to sit here with this Aaron Rodgers hocus pocus miracle type of procedure. It's going to go about it the normal way, and it's not one that's usually a fast process. Then you have Bradley Chubb, who of course had the injury that he had. Maybe that's something he comes back a little bit sooner, but both of those guys are still question marks. And then of course you're not going to have Van Ginkel back. So where the Dolphins are going to be able to get that type of pressure on guys may be something that doesn't happen until the first quarter of the year is done, when they're all trying to learn the system and get this under their belt anyway. But I think the other thing that had to be of note was the player. He mentioned the players that he's excited about. Now, in the press conference, this part came first, where he lists off the players that he's excited to talk about. And there's going to be one particular guy I think everybody is going to realize, mentioned number 94.
There's a guy there's probably multiple guys on every level of defense that you can get excited about, right? Up front, you got the Zach Sealers, Jalen Phillips, right? Bradley Chubb, Christian Wilkins, right? Gotta love watching him. David Long at the linebacker position. Javon Holland, who's an absolute beast and playmaker out there running around, and Jalen Ramsey, right? So on every level of defense, there's somebody that you get excited about watching. And I know there's guys I failed to mention. I apologize to all of them, but
you can apologize all you want, but we're going to read into the guys that you said.
The opportunity to come here, obviously, with a team that's had the success they had. How do you pass on that, right? Mike and that offense, they're going to put up points, right? That's definitely going to happen. And it's our job to make sure that we give up less points to the other team. And we plan on doing that every time we get out there.
All right. So obviously the thing that stands out there is Christian Wilkins is a mention, and we'll get to his other spot on Christian Wilkins. He was asked by Adam Beasley about Christian Wilkins specifically in his contract. But he does mention him. And, I do think that, man, it'd be critical. It's critical for the Dolphins to bring Wilkins back. I really, if they're going to solve anything this offseason, because you have the failsafe with Tua, like letting Christian Wilkins go is it would be just such a blow. I think it would be such a disaster if that ends up happening. I don't think it is. I think they're going to end up paying Christian Wilkins and keeping Christian Wilkins, and just think he's that important. But him mentioning him definitely sticks out. And then, of course, didn't mention Jerome Baker, didn't mention Xavier Howard. He wants to apologize. Okay, apologize. I mean, that's great. But it definitely makes immediately, this guy seems already pretty media savvy. He's had talks, I'm sure, with both Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel. I'm sure they've already said, all right, who are you going to have? And, Christian Greer has already made it known that they want to keep Wilkins and they want to have him around and all that type of stuff. That's great. But I'm sure he also knows which guys aren't going to be here. So that's definitely something that made the eyebrow raise a little bit. But he did say that he does hope that he gets the chance to coach Christian Wilkins.
I love coaching good players. And obviously he is one of them. So have a tremendous amount of respect for him. Know that he's positioned himself, obviously, for a huge payday. And as an ex-player, I completely understand the business of the league. So love Christian, right? Would love to have him. But, man, we'll see.
Yeah, we will see, won't we? Won't we, Coach Weaver? We will see, huh? So, anyway, thought it was a great press conference. Interesting stuff. Not Vic Fangio. And that's good enough for me right now. I like the way and the direction and the vibes that this is shaping up to with the new defense coordinator of the Miami Dolphins.